10 minutes past 8 this morning, time to turn our attention to rugby, and I'm delighted to say Fiona Hayes is with us. Fiona, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, lads. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Listen, tell us a little bit about what your immediate reaction was when you heard the news that Kiera Griffin was retiring.
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't a shock to me. I'd been chatting to Junior a couple of times around it. I thought she might have hung on. You know, they had a good win last week, so I was sad. I suppose I was sad to see her go 27 years of age, but you know, other factors start coming into it. At that, you know, when you get to that age, she's recently married as well, so it's a massive loss for women's rugby. I think what she brings on the pitch, off the pitch, is absolutely amazing, and she just gels everyone together. And she's just an immense rugby player, an immense trainer. Her work rate, everything about her. If you're a young player watching her, she just shows you how it's done, really. She did make the point that if they qualified for the World Cup, then obviously she would have gone through to the World Cup. And I can see how that it's the end of a World Cup cycle, and so it's not a bad time to step away in that respect. It's very young, and I understand that there are other parts of your life that you want to go and get involved in. And she talked about education, and she talked about the farm, and obviously she talked about family. And so again, I do understand that. But if the organisation was perfect and if everything was seamless, do you really step away fully? Do you retire fully, or do you say I'm going to take a break for a couple of years and see what happens? There's no formal sense that she might come back down the line. No, there's no formal sense, but I suppose with Kiera's personality, she's all in. When she's training, she's all in. When she's playing, she's all in. So for her as a person, I don't think it would have felt right to say, look, I'm going to step away and see how things go and I might come back. I think in her head, her decision was, this is now the time. She was obviously gutted about the World Cup. We have to look at the pressure she was under the last couple of weeks as well. It wasn't a great place for her. She likes to do her talking on the pitch, and I suppose she's not even heavily on social media. So when all these things I think come into factor as well, to her as a captain, and you have to start dealing with all this kind of stuff. I mean, there would have been a lot of reasons behind her decision, but I think that kind of makes it a little bit, I wouldn't say easier, but it adds to why she should go and concentrate on that other things. And like Kiera's, she's a scream. She's some woman for the farming, so she loves it, and I'd say she misses it. You know, even when she's up in camp and in the gym and those early mornings, I'd say she's dreaming about milking the cows. You know.
The atmosphere around the team is obviously not great at the moment, and to be the figurehead and the leader of certainly one aspect of it must have been tricky for her. So how much of that do you think fed into it?
I don't know. As she said, there was the World Cup cycle. She's recently married. She had a lot of things that came into it. Obviously, she was absolutely gutted in not qualifying for the World Cup. And in knowing Kiera, she would blame herself a lot of that, because as captain, she would feel that she should have dragged the team over the line. So she was under pressure. I don't think it's solely that, but I'd say when she came to her decision and she talked to her husband, to their family and those closest around her, I'd say when she came to her decision, it was probably somewhat of a relief, because she gets to step out of that pressure cooker. As I said, she does her talking on the pitch. She's a woman of few words, but when you're training, when you're playing with her, she's absolutely given every little bit that she has, and she's done that. She's done that for women's rugby, and I feel like she thinks it's time now.
And do you feel like the group are unified by what happened over the last week, or is there a division within the group as well about what's happened? And it just feels like at the moment there are different groups. There's the IRFU, and then there's some of the players who obviously were very upset about what's happened over the last week, and there are some of the players who feel like there's a different conversation needs to be had, and it's just hard for us on the outside to understand exactly what the dynamics are at the moment.
Yeah, for me, I think the players up at camp are absolutely unified. I think what you're dealing with, lads, as well is you have some players, not that they don't feel it as much as others, but you have some players that are there years, that have felt disheartened for years, and you have some newer players in, so they probably don't quite understand it. Then you might have some of the sevens mixing in who deal in a different setup, and things are dealt differently with them, and how things are done. So in their unity together, they're 100% on the pitch, and I'm sure they've had these conversations, but I would imagine it's just more so, rather than a division, it's more so some players feel exceptionally strong. Everyone needs to be brought together, and I think that's the one thing coming out of it, is that they want to see clubs, everyone needs to be involved in this process, maybe not just the RFU, players, clubs, we're all going forward, everyone wants a role, and they want to just for it to happen, I suppose, is what they want. And I know everyone will have a different agenda, but I don't think it has taken place where everyone has actually sat down and discussed, what's their feelings on the women's game and how we can make this better. Yeah,
because I think that in the midst of what's going on at the moment, it's very easy for people to just I ascribe certain motivations to people for whatever is coming out. But actually, if you look at this long term and you look at where the rugby team were a decade ago versus their competitors and where they are now versus their competitors, it's clear to say that the women's team and the women's 15s team in particular is nowhere near as good and nowhere near as successful as they were. And that is a collective responsibility, but mostly it's the responsibility of the organisation who puts the team out, and they're the ones who are supposed to field it. And I think that's why there was such a strong reaction to Anthony Eddy's comments, was like, you've been in charge of this. When you took over, the team were competing for Grand Slams, World Cup semi-finalists, and now they haven't qualified. And that's where the disconnect comes between the finger pointing at the players. Now, some of the players, by all accounts, do feel like they didn't perform and do actually have a responsibility for being beaten by inferior opposition who they would normally beat. So, it's possible that there's truth in everything here, that the organisation has not done what they said they would do and they're not holding themselves accountable, and that the players underperformed. Oh, there you go. We've just momentarily frozen with Fiona. Yeah, we'll get that back. 17 minutes past 8 this morning. We'd love your views on this. One of the burning issues in Irish sport at the moment, slightly overshadowed somewhat by the result at the weekend. I'd say no one was happier than Anthony Eddy when Joey Carberry was making it a 9-point win.
Yeah, it's a very good point, actually, that the Irish rugby conversation very quickly, in the space of about 24 hours, had changed. Because Friday, even before the All Blacks game, there was only one story in town, and it wasn't the All Blacks.
Yeah, sorry Fiona, we just lost you there when I was making the point that there's different pockets of responsibility here, and we kind of need to make sure that we talk about everything while at the same time not losing sight on where we are versus where we were.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I think everyone needs to sit at the table. We saw the RFU come out and they were 100% right. Players felt like that they had done everything that they could possibly do in that time, but the players have other reasons behind that. They want to discuss it. There's other issues there as well, which stem back from years ago. I mean, Fiona Coughlin talked about she penciled these issues down in 2011 and she wrote a letter, and she feels like the same issues are still there, and I think that's why everyone needs to be brought to the table, because there's little bits coming in from everywhere, whereas no one's actually had a discussion together about this. And it's not a blaming game, it's how do we fix this.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about Rassie Erasmus, because obviously that was the other big news in the last 24 hours. We're given to understand that he will appeal his 2-month ban from all rugby and his 12-month ban from match day activities. I know people are immediately like, oh, that's a big hefty ban he's been given, and it's right. It would have been much better if they'd done that the week of the game when he actually did this and put the pressure on the referee in the next game, because it feels a little bit like it's after the event now. 2 months of all rugby. Well, it's not the busiest time of the year for an international rugby director. Like, he's not going to miss that many important matches. And then, okay, fair enough, a match day activity, that is a proper serious thing. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think, I 100% agree. It should have been done at the time. I mean, we'd all nearly forgotten about it at this stage. I had to actually go back over the video and have a look at what he actually said. But I do think with the way the game is going with referees and TMO and stuff like that, that they needed to do something. They needed to say, every week we're listening to coaches now question decisions. it's human error. It's always been human error. I know TMO, I'm sick of listening to coaches after matches questioning decisions after games. Yeah, it's a big error, but we have to deal with this. And I think they've actually put the foot down and said, look, there is big punishment here. You can't speak to people like that. Our officials are doing their best, and they've set a big marker here, I think.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that's the end of the pre-match pressure on the referee. But for whatever reason, I don't think that think some coaches are always going to try and get away with it. I tell you what, we might just get you back on the phone there to try and improve the quality of the line. It is 21 minutes past 8. You're watching or listening to OTB AM this morning. We're live with Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow. What was your take on Rassie Erasmus?
It'll be interesting to see what sort of conclusion this reaches in terms of his own legacy. I mean, I don't know. It is kind of there is going to be no significant result of him missing 2 months, obviously. But it is interesting that the book has been handed to him a little bit here, and there's obviously the testimony from Nick Berry in all of this, which wasn't that kind of. I definitely would have looked at this in kind of a very light-hearted manner, and it's like, this, we can all be tongue-in-cheek about this whole Rassie thing, and then you read the Nick Berry personal statement and it's like, Jesus, that is a big old personal toll on him, and his own professionalism really felt it was under question, and even this sort of sense of the threats from Erasmus to release things where it offer a meeting, and then the meeting doesn't happen, and then he does go and is good to his threat and actually releases his video detailing some of the grievances he had with the refereeing. It all kind of paints a picture where you do feel that this was over the line from Rassie, to say it at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, if it doesn't get made public, it's totally fine. But the fact that it gets made public, that's ridiculous. That's the egregious sin here. We've got Fiona Hayes back. Fiona, let's talk about events on the field. We await with bated breath to see exactly what the makeup of the matchday 23 is going to be for the game against Argentina this weekend. And we're very interested because there's an opportunity to really see some new blood, but there's also an opportunity for us to go out and put a third successive performance together. So it's a balancing act from the Irish coaching ticket. What would you do if you were in that selectors room? Are you more inclined to make sure that we catapult ourselves forward and guarantee the win as much as you can with your best team, or do you desperately want to see the new blood and see how they get on in the big game?
I think it's time to get some of the new blood in there and see how they go. I mean, we've seen the two big performances. I think that the young guys coming in, or the new guys coming in, will definitely be under pressure to have a big performance. I mean, they're probably training well up at camp, but he's stuck with kind of rigidly the last couple of teams, and we've seen such amazing performances. We've finally seen our attacking game in play, and I wouldn't mind seeing some of these new guys getting a chance to show that as well. Obviously, it wouldn't be wholesale changes. I think I'd be leaving thereabouts the front row, maybe change second row, maybe a couple of back rows. But I'm definitely excited seeing a different back line, giving it a lash, I think.
The quality of the performance against New Zealand was so high that no matter what happens this weekend, it feels like there's going to be something of a letdown and a bit of a dose of reality if we don't blow Argentina away. And we're not going to blow Argentina away because they're actually a really good team and they've done really well over the last number of years, and they always cause us trouble, particularly around the World Cups. So what's your expectation of what will actually happen and transpire in the game? What would you be happy with?
Me personally, I'd be happy with seeing us stick to that attacking system where we have multiple playmakers available. We're playing the same style. I suppose I could be wrong. I don't know if we're going to get that same intensity at ruck time that we had, but you've guys that are chomping at the bit, that have been waiting 3 weeks now to get on a pitch. So maybe I could be wrong on that. I would be happy. I think it will be a tighter game if there's changes put in there. But I do think Ireland will come away with the win. I mean, what you have on that in that panel that is to come on is really, really exciting as well. I'd love to see maybe Zebo getting a go. Craig Casey might come on. Balakoon is another guy that offers you exciting rugby. So there are chances to get these guys in there and have a go. But I'm sure they're all really, really focused, and they've been training well and ready to crack the whip when they get out there. So I think we'll see a good performance again by Ireland.
Where is Zebo at the moment in your back three picture? Is he like the front runner for the 23 jersey perhaps as this thing plays out over the next little while?
Yeah, I suppose you're looking at that. I mean, they've gone with Keith Earls the last couple of games, which I wholly agree. And I mean, there's a difference there. Earls could probably cover the centre for you, whereas Zebo can cover wing and full back. I think we can't even discuss even him taking the starting full back at the minute. Hugo Keenan is playing absolutely outstanding rugby. He's winning everything. He's a playmaker. He's attacking the space well. He's putting other people into space. So for me, I suppose it's about getting him out there. He might get a go on the wing this week, maybe not. But it's getting him out there and see exactly where he's at. We haven't seen him playing international rugby in a while, so it's a different ball game. You know, it's a high pressure, much quicker game. So it will be exciting to see where he is. But I think it's on the wing, maybe covering wingers for me.
Okay, it will be interesting to see how that all shakes out, because like we still have other players who have been around the Ireland setup for years and who are out injured at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see if they get game time over the next 12 months, really, because that's when we all start thinking about the World Cup. The women's team played Japan on Saturday, and again, it's going to be very important for them to put down a performance and try and change the mood music around everything that's happening at the moment. So what level of expectation do you have ahead of that game?
Yeah, I've watched Japan a couple of times. I think Ireland will definitely get the win at the weekend. The crowds behind them. Japan are kind of at the back of a bit of a couple of losses, and I suppose a long tour. When you're losing games on the road, it's harder to get players completely up for it. I'm sure they will be, but I've watched them. They're a nice little team, but I think Ireland's power and dominance, if we can get the set piece right, like we did at times last week, we'll really, really put Japan under pressure. So I would definitely think you'd be looking at maybe a win, depending on if there is massive wholesale changes again.
Okay, good stuff, Fiona. Thanks a million for joining us.
No worries, lads. Thanks a million. Sorry about the line.